Alright, so for number 1, you should get x is 43, and then you do have to check that one. Why don't you have to check number 2?
What's the cube root?
Yes, so cube roots do not have those restrictions. So you don't have to worry about that one. Okay? So for number 1, I'm going to write out what your check should look like, so that you can make sure you have all your steps. So if you plug back in 43, this one's actually pretty simple. It's the square root of 49 equals 7, so 7 equals 7, that's your check. Okay, so don't just write 7 equals 7. For this, you got to show your steps. You got to plug it in and then do each step. Okay? All right, questions for me on 1 or 2? 1 or 2 are good?
How's it make
That, so if you cube both sides, and you do need to show this step, this is part of your process, was 3x plus 24. So if you move x over here, you get 2x minus 24. Yep, you should have negative 30. So negative divided by the positive. That's how you look at it. Okay, and then number 3, you should have x equals 6. 4, you should have x equals 1/2. How did number 3 go? Yeah, we're definitely going to do number 4 together, because I want to show you that check, because that one is a little more intensive, so we'll do that one together. But how's number 3? You feeling good about 3? Okay. Alright, so number 4, the check process is going to be more intensive just because we have some radicals here. So I do want to go over as well how to solve this. So you have the radicals. You can't isolate this one, so you have to square both sides. Now, if you're taking your test and you are confused on whether you distribute this or not, remember, anything squared is just that value multiplied by itself. So if you have 3 root x times 3 root x, you have to do 3 times 3, which is 9, and then root x times root x. Okay, now you can get all of the x's on one side. Another thing you might want to watch out for, because this is the no calculator section, is some people see the 4 and the 8, and they accidentally put 2 instead of the 1/2, so be careful there. Okay, now this check is a little more sophisticated, so we're going to do this one together. So if you have 1/2 plus 4 equals 3 over 1/2. Remember, when you're doing the checks, you cannot square both sides. You could only do those types of operations when you know they're equal. We don't know if they're equal. That's why we're checking it. Okay? So this is 4.5. 4.5 as a fraction is what? As an improper fraction. 9 over 2. So square root of 9 over 2. Good. Oh, I'm going to keep that there until I start to do that. Okay, so if you have a square root, you can do the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. Are you guys with me so far? 4.5 is the same thing as 9/2. 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. The reason why I want to write it like this is so I can do the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom, because what's the square root of 9? 3. Now if you were writing this as an answer, I would make you rationalize it. 3 root 2 over 2. You don't have to do that for this. I'd be fine if you could just get this on this side. So you have a fraction over here, let's just split it up. Isn't this the same thing as the square root of 1 over root 2? Well, what's the square root of 1? Okay, and then if I multiply these two together, think of it like this. 3 times 1 is 3. So look, you got the same thing on both sides. Okay, so if you do have a fraction under a radical, you should always aim to get it into an improper fraction, so you can do the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. Okay, and that was one of the more challenging checks. All right, 5. You have to do a check because 1/2 is the same thing as what? The square root. And if you want to write it as the square root, you can absolutely do that. How did 5 go? Okay, do you guys want to see any checks? Are you feeling good about that? Feeling good? Okay. All right. 6, you don't need a check because it's a cube root. Should have got 1/4. Okay. Do you guys want to go over 6? All right. And let's look at 7 and 8. How did those go? We're gonna look at the work for 7. Okay, so for 7, you're gonna square both sides. Be careful here because when you square this, you have to FOIL. Did you guys remember that this is x squared minus 6x plus 9? Or did you accidentally do x squared plus 9? That's a common mistake. Okay? Alright, so then once you have this, move everything to one side. Is there something that tells you that you have to move everything to one side? Like, how do you know when to do that? How do you, what lets you know that you're going to end up factoring? There's an x squared term, there's an x term, there's a number term. Okay, so you can make that trinomial, then you're going to factor. Okay, so 2 things that multiply to 7 but add to 8 are positive 1 and 7. So your solutions are negative 1 and negative 7. Okay, this is what your check should look like. Please take a moment now to make sure you have the proper work. Okay, so you have to plug it in. Square root of 16 is 4. On this side you get negative 4. Why is this not the negative 4? Why can't I say that's okay? Yes. There can only be positive roots if you already have the root in there. You just look at the sign in front. There's nothing there, it's positive. If it's a negative, then it would have to be a negative. When do you put the plus or minus? That only comes in when you're doing what? Yeah, when you're solving for x squared. That would be the only time if you are solving for that. Okay? Alright, and then negative 7 is a similar story. You guys should notice that a lot of the times they don't work out when one side is a positive, the other side is the negative of that same number. Because if you start to get something like 10 equals 5, then you probably have the wrong answer to begin with. Okay, so take a look at those different patterns. Alright, and then 8, you did not need to do a check because there will not be extraneous solutions and you should get negative 52. Yes?
If the wrong answer, like, you do the check, and you have a solution that's the correct answer, will we get it right?
Well, not if that's not the correct answer, but I would, I wouldn't doubly mark you down for it. So I would mark you down for not getting the right answer, but if you plugged it back in and it didn't work, I wouldn't take off another thing for that. Alright, let's look at 9 and 10, and I did put the checks for both of those in there. So take a moment and make sure that you have all the proper words for the checks. Okay, like I said, those can be difficult because a lot of times we want to rush through that part. Okay, so take a moment now and check that.